We are live on YouTube, and let me go ahead and just make sure it's recording on my end as well. Record on this computer. This is the Male Entrepreneur Podcast, episode number 130, and we are live in 3, 2. All right, welcome back to the Male Entrepreneur Podcast, the podcast for men who win, with your host, Purdeep Sangha. Purdeep, how you doing today, man?
Doing pretty awesome, man. It's a great day. I'm noticing the days are a little bit shorter though. So that's a little bit of a bummer. The sun is coming up a little bit later and it's going down a little bit earlier now. So I'm gonna kind of miss summer.
Yeah, I already noticed some leaves falling off of the trees, and fall is my favorite time of year, but it feels like we kind of got robbed of a summer this year.
You know what? I kind of feel the exact opposite because we had phenomenal weather up here. It was it rained very seldom, and I think we had a good 3 months of awesome hot summer weather. And for us, I think it was I'm talking about my family, right? I think my family, we had the opportunity to bond a little bit more. We did a lot more family stuff. We stayed away from other people, and doing the typical things like going to malls and stuff like that. So it was fun for us.
See, so my summers usually, me and Bella go swimming at least once a week, and for the most part, we went to the lake a lot this summer, the reservoir. So we still got some swimming in, but not nearly as much as we usually do. And we tend to take a vacation every year, and we didn't get to take a vacation this year because of everything. So it felt like summer hit, and we didn't get I think the main thing is we didn't get our annual summer vacation, and that kind of was a bummer for me. And I'm sure it probably was a bummer for Bella, because she was just complaining about it the other day, how she had to go back to school and we never did anything quote unquote fun for the summer.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. I'm having the itch to go on vacation too. It feels like it's been forever. I think a lot of families are. I think a lot of people just want to get the heck away. Funny you say that because my hometown, Kelowna, British Columbia, it's a really awesome hot spot in the summer. It's got a beautiful lake. It's got wineries, orchards, mountains, you name it. It's like the Napa Valley for the Canadian version, right? And I guess a lot of Canadians couldn't go on vacation abroad, so they ended up going to Kelowna because that's the next best thing if you can't get away from Canada. And I heard now that the whole COVID, the rate in Kelowna just shot up because people weren't being responsible there. All these kids were out on the beaches, people were out there partying. And for a very secluded area before that had very few cases, now it's actually exploded, which I thought was kind of interesting. But I think people just need to be a little bit more responsible when it comes to that.
So I want to pick your brain on some of the impacts that this whole thing, and I hear the responsibility argument, but I also feel like so I'm just going to say this. I know 7 people now who have gotten corona. None of them have died from it. I've heard of one person who got it in our area and died from it. But I know 6 people, all except for one of them under the age of 20, who have committed suicide since the lockdowns.
Wow.
And so it seems like, at least where I'm at, the psychological impact of how we're handling it is having a much higher toll than the virus itself is. And especially for the kids, I've got Bella, and I worry about the long-term impacts, the short-term impacts on this. And I want to say, I don't know what the answer is. I'm not playing an armchair quarterback where I'm like, well, what we should have done is this, and what Trump should have done is this, because I have no idea. This is new to all of us. But I think that it would be, especially for fathers out there, I think that there's some things that we should be at least cautious of, or conscious of, as far as how this might be impacting our kids, how some of the measures that we've taken might be impacting our kids. Are you down for that conversation?
Yeah, I think it'd be a great conversation because I think it needs to be had. It's really important, especially right now, because kids will be going back to school. So it's something important to talk about. I know some parents are not putting their kids back in school. We had an interesting debate here at home because my wife is in the medical field.
Mhm.
And her brother was actually over, and he's a surgeon. He's a plastic surgeon, very well educated, very well respected here in Toronto. One of the best surgeons for what he does. And I had a good conversation with him about Corona. And I asked him, I said, well, based on your medical opinion, what do you think? Is this a sham? Do you think that there's an easy cure out there? And he said, based on his research, it's not a sham. There is no easy cure out there. He does believe that there is significant impact. There's more and more studies that are coming out. He was saying that even younger kids are getting it, but a certain population, let's just say under 10, he was saying, aren't shown to have or carry the virus, but now we're seeing new cases. He said there's just so many things that are happening. The virus is mutating that it's hard to keep track of it. And so he basically, his opinion to me was, you know what, just whatever we do in terms of our decision to send our kids back to school, just make sure that we're conscious of the impact, because it is real. The virus is real, and we do need to take it seriously. I agree with you what you were talking about, because his main point was, if you have a healthy immune system, you're pretty good, right? You're okay. But it's for those people that don't have healthy immune systems or don't know that they don't have healthy immune systems. They're the ones that are at risk the most. And so I think it's about being mindful, because there is a real threat. But again, what you said, I'm seeing the behavior change of my kids within the last, well, since March, since we went in lockdown, or was it February? I can't remember. I've seen their behavior change. I've seen them struggle in certain aspects. I've seen them misbehave a lot more. They are getting antsy. My my little one's getting a little bit overweight because he's not running around as much as he usually does at school. But I'm trying to get him out there. I take him out a couple hours a day. It's funny because he actually went. There was a new shipment that came in for weights the other day, and I actually ran. I just went and got it because I didn't second guess, because there's like a massive shortage, and I wanted to get an Olympic bar because I have all these plates but no bar to use. So I was like, I'm going there. So I went, and I had to take my kids with me. And they're running around the store. They're like, yeah, can I buy this dumbbell? So I bought them little baby dumbbells, right? Little small ones so they can exercise with me. But I'm seeing the impact on them. Yesterday, they were out there with jumping on the trampoline, and our neighbor behind us has a trampoline as well. They're not directly behind us, but they're diagonal. And it seems like she's the only daughter. We haven't really talked to those neighbors because our houses are pretty far apart. But she was jumping up and down by herself. My kids have been talking to her over the last few weeks, and then she's like, "Can I come over?" My kids are like, "Can she come over, please?" And I felt so bad, because I was like, oh, what do I say? And I could tell her dad was kind of like a little bit wary as well, because he's like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, I don't know what to do either. Here you have these two neighbors, my two kids and her, that want to play together, but we're completely unsure of whether it's safe for either family. And so, man, I feel sorry for single kids right now,
Mm-hmm.
kids that don't have any siblings. I feel sorry for parents that don't have daycare, that can't take their kids anywhere. They can't leave them with their families. Maybe their parents are older, and they don't want to put their mother or father, the grandparents, at risk. So there's a lot of challenges. So for kids, man, I'm not sure what to do, but I can tell you that there are lasting impacts. What are you seeing? You've got a daughter. What are you seeing?
She's a single kid. She doesn't have any brothers or sisters from her mom, and her mom is she's definitely been acting up a lot more, and her mom is not, maybe her mom understands but is having trouble dealing with it. But yes, what I worry about the most is this: what's it like growing up being told that you have to fear other people? Like you have to be afraid of people's breath. Like I mean, for kids, that's got to be crazy. And I'm going to be full disclosure. I have not taken this thing as serious as most people have. Just because I've tried to say, what's the health risk and what's the mental health risk? And from where I'm at, I've seen more mental health problems and risks. So I've been a little bit more cautious of those. But I'm not exactly sure, man. It's one of those things where I feel like we have to have a balance, and I feel like we're not talking enough about the other side, and uh, kids not being able to communicate with each other, kids not being able to play with each other, especially kids without siblings, like Bella's situation. Um, I, this might make me a bad person, but we've let her had play dates. We've let her have her friends come over. We've let her go out and play with some of the other kids. It's every single time there's that worry in the back of our heads, and it feels like playing Russian roulette kind of. But at the same time, I'm kind of scared as to what uh and it's not just that, it's also like the masks. They've done studies where people kind of dehumanize when they see people in masks or when they're wearing a mask. They've done studies on the internet when people, when you have that anonymity, people don't treat each other as well. When they've done the Stanford prison experiments where they had people come in and pretend to be guards and pretend to be prisoners, and they noticed that the guards, just the simple act of wearing sunglasses that were mirrored, they rotated the sunglasses between the guards, and when the guards were wearing the sunglasses that were mirrored so you couldn't see their eyes, the guards treated the prisoners worse than they did when the prisoners could see their eyes. So there's a lot of stuff where I kind of worry about, if you're growing up, if you're molding your vision of the world, if you're a kid in the middle of this environment and you're not getting the social cues, you're not being able to see people's smiles, you're not being able to hang out with your friends. um, I think that that's a part of the conversation that we should be having, and it's just being completely ignored. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about it today.
Yeah, it's a really important conversation to have. I don't even know if we're at the right point yet because people are still trying to get through the whole COVID thing. And they're trying to figure out how to deal with the mass population, the spread. At some point, we will have to talk about the impact. I think it'll happen hopefully early next year. I don't think we're going to get to that point this year because there's just so many unknowns with the virus still. But I think it will be taken seriously because, as you said, there's people out there that are committing suicide. There's people out there that are having health risks. For kids, it is tough. You know, you mentioned talking about the face. Yes, we have over 100 something muscles in our face. We learn to read people's behavior and their emotions through their face. That's a big component. And if kids don't understand that, they're kind of lost from that perspective. So we're gonna have to, I think we're gonna have to do a reboot next year at some particular time. We're going to have to sit there and say, okay, now we need to pour more energy into our kids. Or you could take a look at it from a different perspective and say, you know what, maybe this is just a pause for kids on the outside world. Maybe we need to focus more on our family
Mhm.
and build those relationships. That's really what I've done is I've spent more time building a stronger relationship with my wife and kids. I've taken this opportunity and said, if we can't go out and do stuff, it's actually been a blessing for us because we've come together way stronger as a family. We've done way more things together. Although my son and daughter, they butt heads a lot and they fight, they still love each other, and I'm seeing them grow together. So I think there's pros and cons. The other thing that's coming out of this as well is the use of technology has shot up like astronomically, right? We're sitting here on Zoom, we're having this, Zoom shares have gone ballistic. It'd be nice to have invested in Zoom prior to this happening because who knows, but these guys have done well. But technology has blown up. Video conferencing, even for kids going to school, my kids are going back 4 days. One of their days is going to be through video conference. I'm more worried about the technology aspect than anything else because I think more people are leaning towards social media and technology to overcome their challenges. We've had challenges with people, social relationships, regardless of this COVID piece, where people have buried themselves in social media, whether it's Instagram or Facebook. Now it's just a completely different level. And I think that will have a bigger impact on kids, especially if kids are getting used to that. My son, I'm holding up my smartphone right now. He has everything he can to get into my phone so he can text someone or do something. I forbid him. I do not allow him to. My daughter has my wife's old phone, her old iPhone. And I tell her, get that away from her. I don't want her to have the habit of carrying that phone around with her. If she builds it later on, that's on her, but I don't want to build it when she's a kid. And my son tells me all the time too, and he's a good check for me. He's a good balance for me. And he says, "Dad, you're too much on your phone today." And I'll be like, "Okay."
I actually recently went through my phone and deleted every single social media from it. I have found, especially over the last couple of months with all the rioting and all the political division leading up to the election, social media has just become so toxic. And I try to keep my feed mainly just people that are business, entrepreneurial minded people. But even amongst them, it's getting to the point where I just don't even want to. I log in to Facebook for maybe 5 minutes a day, and that's all I can handle. I post something, and then I'm out for 24 hours. And I had to take it off my phone. I had to take all the social media off my phone. Um, so yeah, when kids are not having the regular engagement, and then they're turning to social media, and social media is becoming more and more toxic and more crazy. uh, I I don't know, man. That's kind of scary to me.
Yeah, it's so here's what I do. I think you're super smart to do that. I actually jumped off Facebook and stopped posting. I still post on my business profiles, my personal profiles, still post things here and there. I don't stream. I don't go through and take a look at Instagram or Facebook or any of that to take a look at other people's profiles. I took myself off of that. I don't watch news. I just got a message yesterday from one of my clients that's basically said, "Hey, look, what do you think about the NBA? What's happening with it?" And I said, "What's happening with the NBA?" Apparently, there's a boycott. And I just literally told him, I said, "I haven't watched TV or news for 3 months." I shouldn't say TV because we do watch movies, but I haven't watched anything live for 3 months. I choose to get my news through, I have different apps that I have, very specific, very pointed, that send me articles based on the topic that I'm interested in. And so I will go through that and I will take a look. These are very credible sources. They're not like propaganda stuff. And so I get my news through there. I get my current events through there rather than trying to get it through someone that's trying to manipulate me or trying to increase their ratings. So and it's healthy. It's healthy to do that. I think more and more people need to do that. I just don't know if families are doing that. I have a feeling, my gut is telling me that more families are jumping into social media and technology than they are actually jumping away from it.
Hmm. I like one thing that you said. We're nearing the end of this episode, and I just want to retouch on this and get your thoughts on it. Um, a lot of parents might not realize we're older, we're battle torn, we've been through life, we've taken our bumps and scrapes, and we know how to handle things, and we might not realize the effects that all of this is having on our kids, and we might not empathize with that. So as a father, what are your suggestions on being able to be more conscious of how this is affecting our kids, and maybe some steps to take on how to be more of a rock for them, be more of a shelter for them to help them through this?
Yeah, really good point. So I think the first thing is to know that we project our energy onto our kids. And so if we're living in a negative state, we're going to project that energy onto our kids. And so that's, you could talk about the universal laws, you can talk about physics, spirituality, whatever that is. So we first have to take accountability for our own energy and make sure that it's positive, make sure that there's a lot of love in the household. That's the most important thing to take a look at. The second is to basically pay attention to our kids, because it's easy to step away and get caught up in work at home or sit on social media. See what our kids are doing, engage our kids, be present with the kids. I try to use more eye contact more than anything. And I know that if I'm having eye contact with my son or my daughter, I'm more present with them. And so I find myself, if I'm not making eye contact, I'm typically thinking about something else. So that's one exercise to use. The other piece is to know that what happens today doesn't necessarily impact them today. There's a long lasting impact in the future. This could impact them a few years from now. This could impact them when they're adults. You just don't know when it's going to impact them. So if you think your kid is okay, that's great, but just make sure, double check, right? Take extra precautions. I'm not saying you should be a helicopter parent, but here's something that taught me a lesson. My kids had an exercise when this first happened where their school sent them these cutout, well, not cutout, these printed faces, empty faces, but it was the shape of a face, where they were supposed to at the end of the day, draw out how they felt throughout the day. And my son drew this face, which was just basically, it was almost sad, but maybe emotionless. And I said, "Is that how you feel?" And he said, "Yes." But throughout the day, he looked like he was fine. He's jumping around, he's playing. And that taught me a huge lesson, because sometimes they cannot verbalize it. They can't tell you how they're feeling, but they're just feeling that way. Think about it. As adults, sometimes we don't even know how we feel.
Mhm.
So kids, it's a completely different level. So pay extra attention to your kids and their emotional state more than anything. I think that's the most important thing I could say.
Awesome. Pradeep, we kind of went down a little bit of a rabbit hole this week, and I appreciate you taking the time to discuss this. If people want more episodes of the podcast, where's the best place to go?
Yeah, check out YouTubeformen.com or mailpodcast.com.
Sweet. All right, man. Until next time, we will catch you later.
Take care, man.
We're live on YouTube. Let me go ahead and start the recording on my end. Record on this computer. And this is Male Entrepreneur Podcast episode number 131. And we are live in 3, 2. All right. Welcome back to the Male Entrepreneur, the podcast for men who win, with a winner himself, Purdeep Sangha. Purdeep, how you doing today, man?
I love how you put that. I'm doing awesome, man. I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. You don't have the Male Entrepreneur logo in the background. You got your window.
Yeah, you know what? I got a new camera setup going on. I don't know if you noticed it, but I got one of the DSLR cameras now that's set up, because I'm starting. Actually, I should kind of throw this out there to the audience. I'm starting a new live show in October. And so stay tuned. I'll give you some more details in a little bit, but I'm kind of making my setup a little bit more professional. But it's frustrating, man, because I have windows on 3 walls. Basically, 3 of my walls in my office are all windows.
Mm-hmm.
And I get so much light in here, but I don't know how to figure out how to get the lighting proper, because depending on the time of day, there's too much light or not enough light or whatever it is. So that's why the you don't see the line in the back, because it's closed, because there's too much light coming in the back. I'm still trying to figure all that out.
Yeah. So, podcasting tip, audio tip that also translates into video. In audio, you want to get the most raw, unfiltered. You don't want any echo. You don't want any filter or any kind of like effects on your audio going in. Same thing when it comes to light in your video. You want to have control over your lights. That's why a lot of times when people do filming, they make sure that there's no windows. All of the lighting comes from lights themselves, so that they can have a consistent control over it. Something to think about. You might want to invest in some studio lights, but then that gets rid of the beautiful sunlight. And the sunlight, I personally, any day of the week, I would prefer to have sunlight in the room as opposed to studio lights.
Yeah, it's screwy, man. I do have studio lights and I have a sunroof. I just can't figure it out. I think I have to get a professional in here to tell me what to do. I think let's just leave it at that, because I'm spending way too much time doing this crap.
Okay. So that has nothing to do with welcome to the Male Entrepreneur Podcast, where we talk about audio and lighting.
Hey, well, you know what? That's totally relevant, because there's a lot of people working from home right now. And let's just go on a quick tangent here. One of my clients is actually a photographer. And I told him, I said, you know what, you need to go out there and build some classes for professionals, because there's a lot of people that have set up home offices that can't get their video or their audio or their lighting correct. And so there's
Yeah.
a huge opportunity out there. I think there's a lot of people. If you're out there, you have a home office, you're trying to set it up, you know what I'm talking about, because it's not that easy.
Well, look at you, always finding the bright side in it, the silver lining on every storm cloud, man. So let's jump into this week's topic. What are we going to be talking about?
What are we talking about? Oh yeah, we're talking about worry and how to kill worry, because there's just a lot of worry going around in the world today, man. Well, let's get into worry. Worry is just another form of fear, but we don't really consider worry fear, right? We just kind of consider it in a world on its own. It's okay to worry. It's okay to have anxiety, but in reality, it's just feeling fear. If we looked at someone that was constantly fearful, we'd be like, oh, you know what? You probably need to deal with that. But we don't say the same things with people who worry. But I know there's a lot of people out there worrying. Um, I know some of my family members are worrying. My wife tends to worry, but she's doing that a lot less these days. But there's people in general that are worrying a lot, and I think we need to help people get over that worry.
Um, I I'm gonna do a quick tangent real fast and try not to divert too much. But when I first started my first business, I was 19 years old. Me and my brother started a record label. It was in 1998, 1997, or 1999, around that era. And then we had 9/11 happen right after that,
Mm.
and we saw a lot of uh, overreactions, I believe, on the government's side, and we saw a lot of civil liberties and restrictions on travel and new crazy powers that the government thought that they needed in order to fight terrorism. A lot of stuff that kind of mirrors what we're seeing going on today, I feel like. But um, during that time period, uh, I was kind of like freaking out, being like, "Oh my gosh, what's the government going to do next to fight terror? Like, which freedom are we going to lose next? Which crazy new war are we going to get into next?" And that was right after I started the record label, and for about 4 or 5 years, all of that worry sent me down a rabbit hole of not being able to focus on my business. And I feel like because I got because I got so absorbed in all of that worry, it put like a 5 year stunt on my growth as a human, as a business owner. And the environment seems very familiar to that time. The people freaking out, people being uncertain, people being afraid, not knowing what tomorrow holds, not knowing what the economy is going to look like tomorrow, because we had a lot of fluctuations in the economy around 2001, 2002. And so the environment, the psyche, the energy feels very similar between then and now. And luckily I've been through it, and I kind of am able to say, okay, I need to steady myself and not let myself go down that same rabbit hole. But a lot of people, I don't think that they have that skill. And um, I feel like a lot of people, especially younger entrepreneurs, might be missing out on. We talk, and you're like, "Oh, I see this opportunity, and I see this opportunity," and I see a lot of entrepreneurs that are just seeing hopelessness right now because of all the worry. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
There's two camps right now in terms of entrepreneurs. There's the entrepreneurs that are hurting and they're like, okay, I don't know what to do and I don't know where my life is going. And then there's the other camp that's like, you know what? This is the best opportunity to have because there's so many businesses out there hurting. There's so many needs and everybody's frozen stiff. So if we take a look at that, and I think this is part of the going to be our part of our next episode, which is all about taking the moment for what it is. But you're right. There are just people inundated with worry right now that they can't do anything. And so let's be straight up about worry. Worry doesn't do shit. It doesn't do anything. There is no benefit to worry. It's not constructive whatsoever. It's just a way to feel like you're actually being proactive or like you're doing something, but you're doing something completely different. Worry is, uh, I would say, one of the worst emotions you can have, one of the worst habits that you can have, because what it does, it's not a positive form of stress. It's actually a very negative form of stress because a positive form of stress can actually help you perform better, right? They show that with a stress peak in terms of a certain optimal amount of stress can actually help your physical performance, your mental performance. But worry is none of those. Worry is one of those stresses that just is underlying. It's like that soreness, that back pain that you have that, if you go to bend over and you try to pick something up, you're like, oh, like you don't pick it up, right? Because you have that pain. That's what worry is. And it's constantly there. And so that's why you have to, what I like to do is schedule worry time. And I don't have to do that very much anymore. But this is a technique that I teach my clients to do is actually schedule it out because some people believe that they have to worry because if they're not worrying, they're not being responsible. right? Do you kind of get that, Nathan? Is because, hey, look, if I'm not worrying about the situation, maybe I'm not being a good business owner.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm not being a good parent, right?
Or even a citizen. You mentioned on the last show, they said, one of your friends said, what do you think about the NBA protest or whatever? And you're like, I don't even know about it. And some people might say, it's the most important thing. We're watching a cultural revolution go on and you're not even paying attention. Some people, and I'm guilty of this myself sometimes. Uh, yeah, I feel like, should I be paying attention to it? Should I be ignoring it? If I ignore it, am I ignoring it to my own detriment? But is worrying about it actually helping me do anything about it? It's one of those things that, at least me, I still struggle with.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything. I grew up in a household where my mom, she had an accident, a car accident, which really changed her ability to do physical things. And after that, she just became a big time worry wart. So I grew up with people worrying a lot, and I chose not to worry. I was actually a big worrier growing up myself because my dad suffered from alcoholism. I was always worried about, okay, is he going to drink? How much is he going to drink? What if he drinks too much? All of these things. And I just learned that I didn't have control over that. So when you feel like you don't have control, that's when you start to worry more. And my wife, actually, when we probably about a couple of years ago, her and I had a good conversation because my wife works about 100 kilometers away, and she works till late night and she comes home. So she does a 12-hour shift and she comes home. And she said to me once, and she said, "You know what? You don't care about me." And I said, "What do you mean I don't care about you?" She said, "Well, you don't worry about me." I'm like, "Well, how does worrying equate to caring? I care about you, but it doesn't mean that I have to worry." She said, "Well, you don't worry about me coming home." I said, "What are you, regarding your drive?" And she said, "Yeah, it's an hour drive. It's on the highway. It's a dangerous highway. There's accidents all the time. You don't worry about me, so you don't care." And I had to explain to her that worrying doesn't necessarily equate to caring for someone. And worrying doesn't do anything or for her at all anyways, right? Me sitting here worrying doesn't help her, doesn't help me, and doesn't help the kids when they're here. If they're sitting there watching their dad worry for an hour, is that helping them? No, not at all. In fact, it's actually hurting them. And so we have to take a look at that and be conscious. She finally got it. And this goes back to our last episode, because worrying it doesn't help you, it doesn't help anybody, but we also have to be aware of who's watching us worry.
Mhm.
If our kids are watching us worry, they're going to get that same habit. They're going to think that worrying is a normal part of life. And I don't believe worrying is a normal part of life. I believe it's a habit that's either being created through our environment habitually or what's been taught to us. But I believe that we're natural beings, that we have the ability to be happy and we should be happy. Being happy is a habit on its own. But I don't think worry does anybody any good. Going back to what I was talking about, scheduling worry time is, if you do that, if you say, "Hey, look, I'm going to be responsible and I'm going to worry," right? If that's your thing, if you really want to be responsible and you have to worry, well, then do it at a set specific time of day or period. Set aside half an hour and worry the crap out of yourself, right? Think of every scenario you could worry about and then say, "Okay, I'm done worrying. I've done my worrying for the day," and go on with the rest of your day without having to worry. It's when worry is consistent and constant throughout your day that it actually hurts you the most, right? If it's impacting every aspect of your life.
So I have known quite a few people, and we're the Male Entrepreneur Podcast, and I'm going to say something incredibly sexist. Most of the worry warts that I've known have been females, and anxiety. A lot of the females that I know that worry a lot, it's because they're anxious. They never feel at peace. They're always uh, kind of like an almost an OCD when it comes to worrying. And guys are just like, we'll see what happens. We'll figure it out. We'll have a plan, but if it doesn't go according to plan, we'll figure it out. It'll be good. Um, why do you, First of all, am I hallucinating this and just being a misogynistic pig, Or does it seem like women have a little bit more of a worry gene, maybe? I'm not sure. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, if we take a look at the neuroscience behind it, women are more prone to depression and anxiety than men. That's actually been shown. And it's the way their brain is wired because they have the ability to connect more of their left brain and right brain, basically connect their thoughts with their emotions. So they're constantly connected with their emotions, whereas guys can easily, I'm not going to say easily, but shut off emotions and go more into problem solving more mode and go more into a logical mode of fixing the challenge than women do. So that is why women, if we take a look at it from a spiritual perspective, the feminine energy is very much connected to all aspects of life. It's an energy that is constantly flowing. So a woman is constantly thinking about her kids, her work, her appearance, how she looks. All of this stuff is flowing through her mind, through from an energy perspective all the time. That's got to be challenging because if you're constantly thinking about everything all the time, you're going to be worried. So if your mom is a worry wart, there's a reason for it. It's because of her feminine energy. If your wife is a worry wart, it's the same reason. I'm not excusing it, but it's from two aspects. There's a biological and neuroscience aspect, and there's a spiritual and an energy aspect to it as well. Now let's get back to guys. I believe that guys, again, going with the science, don't worry as much, but I believe that there's a significant amount of guys out there who do worry a lot. I'll give you an example. One of my clients, I was talking to him, I was working through with him on his business growth and changing his business approach. And after a few sessions, he finally said, "You know what? I'm not being honest with you. Over the last few sessions, he's like, I've been putting on this front that everything was okay. And I'm not okay." And then we started going into it and we started getting into his challenges and we started talking about it. And it really came down to this feeling. And a lot of guys have this feeling, including me, that we have to portray a certain way of being, right? We have to be strong. We have to be the one that has the answers to everything. We cannot let our spouse or our kids know that we have any weakness in us. So that's what he was trying to portray. And it was eating him up inside because he knew he wasn't okay. He was worrying a lot, but he just didn't want to show it. So I think a lot of guys are in that boat as well. They're worrying a crap load and they just don't know how to tell their wives, or they can't tell their wives, or they don't want to worry their wives and they don't want to worry the kids. There has to be some kind of outlet, whether it's your guys group or a mastermind or a coach or a mentor or even a friend. Whoever it is, you have to be able to relay that information, because when you keep those emotions internally and you don't allow them to come out, then it just festers, it brews, and it becomes worse and worse.
Mhm. So, what are some things that we can do to either overcome our worry or, um, once we're conscious of the fact that maybe we are letting worry happen when it's not productive, maybe corrective actions that we can take in our own lives?
Mhm. Great question. So I use similar tactics to fear. The first one is associate yourself with positive people. Associate yourself in a crowd of people that are uplifting, that give positive energy, that aren't downers, that aren't into this whole worry thing, because we're a worrying mind. Just one quick thing here. Um, there's what they call negativity bias, which means that if your brain is negative, it's actually going to be attracted to other negative brains. It's also going to heighten the negative stimuli as well. There's a lot of stuff, powerful stuff that happens with negativity. So that's why you have to stay away from other negative people, because you will literally just pull together like this crowd, like this magnet. So having a positive group is important. Then also dissociating yourself from the fear a lot, or the worry. A lot of people believe that worry is part of them, that the situation is part of them. You have to understand, you are not your situation. You are not your worry. So when you take yourself out of that, when you separate it and you make worry just a thing, just like anything else, it's a thing, it's not you, then you realize that you can actually deal with it, right? Think of it as this cup I'm holding in my hand. This is worry. Well, you could take this worry, you can place it further in your desk, away from you. You could put it in another room, or you could smash it and throw it in the garbage. It's a thing. So that's what you can take a look and do with worry as well. The other thing is visualization. Excuse me. Because when we worry, we tend to be very vivid in what we're worrying about. We start to play out all these details, all these future scenarios, and all these past memories that you had that are associated. And you create this mental picture in this movie. Well, what you need to do is actually push that movie as far as back as you can. So if this cup, again, if you're on YouTube, you can see this, is your worry, then you have to distance yourself from it and actually put it in the distance as a visual object and say, as far as I can, because the further away that object is, the less intense your emotions are about it.
I
So,
think it was I think it was Mark Twain. He had a quote something along the lines of, "In my life, I've suffered 1,000 tragedies. A few of them actually happened."
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it was Mark Twain. Yeah, you said, yeah, exactly. And if most of the stuff isn't going to happen, knowing that the chances of it actually happening are actually very slim. But again, you have to treat it like an object. You have to separate yourself from it. You have to put it aside. Don't give it any details. And it's all about focus, because what you focus on is ultimately what you will become and be. And so if you constantly focus on the thing that you're worrying about, you're going to continue to worry. So in a way, you have to distract yourself. In a way, you have to come up with other positive things to put in place of the worry.
Yeah, and I one last thing that I want to touch on before we're out of here. We're actually out of time right now. Um, Projecting. You were talking about, if you project worry, your kids are going to absorb that. If you make a conscious effort to project positivity, the world around you starts to change, the people around you start to change, and your life starts to change, and the way you view the world starts to change.
Couldn't have said it better, man. Why don't we leave it with that?
All right. If
Project
people
positivity.
Absolutely. If people want to check out more episodes of the Male Entrepreneur Podcast, where's the best places to go?
Check out YouTube for Men and malepodcast.com.
Sweet. All right, man. Until next time, I will catch you later.
Till next time.
Right. And we are live on YouTube. Let me go ahead and start the recording on my end. Record on this computer. This is Male Entrepreneur Podcast, episode number 132. And we are live in 3, 2. All right. Welcome back to the Male Entrepreneur, the podcast for men who win, with Purdeep Sangha. Purdeep, how you doing today, man?
Doing awesome, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. We are following up a couple of episodes. Last episode, we were talking about worry, and uh, I, I brought it up. I maybe poked a little bit of fun at you for the fact that when everybody else is worrying and when everybody else is running around like chickens with their heads cut off, you're just kind of like chilling, and you're like, I see an opportunity here, and I see an opportunity here. And while everybody else is doom and gloom and saying, oh my God, the economy's crashing and my business is going to go to heck in a handbasket, Pradeep is like, oh, I see an opportunity here, and I see an opportunity here. You have an uncanny ability to see opportunity where everybody else sees nothing but doom and gloom. And I wanted to kind of pick your brain about a couple of things. Number one, where that mindset comes from. Did you have to cultivate it? And then number two, considering the situation that we're in right now, I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on some of the opportunities that you're seeing out there.
Yeah. So first question, where did it come from? Wow. I would say I kind of developed it as a kid because as I said, my dad was, he's challenged with alcoholism. There's a lot of worrying that happened when I was a younger kid, and to distract myself and get out of the situation, or even, just create something new for me. I imagined things a lot. I did a lot of meditation as a kid. I did a lot of imagining. I did a lot of creativity exercises as a kid, and that's really what it stemmed from. My background, Nathan, and you know this is in so my corporate and academic backgrounds, also in innovation. So I believe that the imagination is the most powerful and best skill that any person can have. So for your kids, for your spouse, for yourself, you should be nurturing your imagination because it is so powerful. It creates so many opportunities, not only for yourself, but for other people as well. This is one beef that I have. And again, we're going on a tangent with the school system, is that it kills kids' creativity. I beg you, if you want to be that awesome dad, is do whatever you can to instill and nurture that creativity and imagination in your kids. There's nothing better that you can do. So that's really where it came from, Nathan, is just imagination, because I think that's very powerful. I everything I do throughout my day, I try to think of it from that perspective. So what's happening with businesses right now? A whole lot, man. There's there's a whole lot happening. I can't really talk about the economy because I don't know where it's going to go. I think there's so many things up in the air. We'll bring my brother back on in a future episode because he's the economic expert and I'm sure he has some thoughts. But have we hit rock bottom? I'm not sure yet. I don't know if we have hit rock bottom from an economic standpoint. There might be some room to go, but here's what I do know is that there is massive opportunity out there and you should be taking advantage of it right now. Don't wait, keep going, find that opportunity because those opportunities are just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. I'm seeing businesses and entrepreneurs slack off a lot, really slack off. Part of this conversation, Nathan, stemmed from me calling a number of different businesses over the past weekend. I've been writing my book and I finally finished my first draft, which I'm happy about. And I had put all this stuff aside and I said, oh, I gotta get caught up in my banking. I gotta get caught up on all this other stuff. So I said, okay, I'm just gonna take a couple of days and actually do that. So I called up these businesses. Man, it was a worst experience I could have had. I was sitting on the phone for hours. I went into a couple of locations and the lineups were friggin' longer than I could imagine. They had way less staff. And it's not because of social distancing, it's because a lot of these people were trying, our businesses were trying to prune their costs. And I just looked and I said, man, this is the worst experience for customers, for clients. And if these guys are going to continue to operate that in the near future, they're going to lose a lot of customers and clients. And these clients are going to want to go elsewhere. So I was just so frustrated with that. I was thinking, why aren't people? I should be again throwing out my book there to these businesses, super fans, because they just need to understand that what you do in the tough times what determines how good you are in the good times. There's a lot of businesses that are just not treating their clients well, and I think there's a huge opportunity for businesses to expand. I think there's a huge opportunity for new business lines, to ventures, joint ventures, whatever that looks like, Nathan. Now is the time to strike because there is massive, massive money to be made right now.
So I think the most the most common or the first thing that comes to mind for me as far as like opportunities in a time like this is the fact that a lot of people are losing, which means they're probably selling at a super low cost. Just got to get rid of all of my business assets. I've got to get rid of the building that we invested in. I've got to get rid of the 3 houses that we're not able to rent out because people haven't been able to pay rent. So I think that if you're already financially sort of stable, we've seen this in most economic downturns where the people that are the richest, they're able to just go in and clean house because everybody who's not in their position has to sell basically, or thinks that they have to sell, and they sell at a really reduced price. And then once things even back out, um, the people that were in a privileged position beforehand end up just making out like bandits. I get a sense though that you see different types of opportunities when I talk to you. It's not just, oh, take advantage of somebody's bad misfortune. That's not the type of striking while the iron is hot that I get from you. I always get kind of a fresh new perspective on opportunities when I talk to you.
Yeah, I think it's just really if I'll give you an example here, just collaboration. I just got off a call with my client prior to recording this these episodes here, and we were talking about collaboration between businesses. He has a physical location in a downtown area, and they have this business improvement group for the downtown businesses. And I basically asked him, I said, hey, look, you know what? How innovative, how creative is this group? I said, really creative. And I said, okay, are they business owners or are they entrepreneurs? And he said, business owners. And I said, are they operating as entrepreneurs or business owners? And he said, what do you mean by that? I said, are they collaborative from the standpoint of coming up with new ideas to help each other's businesses and really do something creative for the downtown area? And he said, absolutely not. And so I said, okay, well, here's a few ideas. So we actually went through and we talked for an hour, and I gave him some ideas, and he's like, wow, yeah, because one of the things, for example, is Halloween. Halloween, my wife told me yesterday, she said, you know what? It seems like Halloween is going to not happen this year, right? It's just people are going to be afraid. So, what better opportunity for a business or a downtown area with a bunch of businesses to actually have a clean or a hygienic, you can say, area for them to give away candy, promote their businesses, or do certain things. But here's what I do know. I might not go to a random person's house to collect candy for my kids, but I will go to a reputable business that actually is using hygienic practices just to take my kids out, because I still want them to experience Halloween. So whenever there is a downturn, there's always an upside, right? We take a look at it from an energy perspective, Nathan. And you know me, and you're into this realm now too, is about spirituality and energy. Everything that we do is based on energy. The energy that we project, the energy that we give out is the energy that we get back. When you constrict yourself in business and you hoard things, or you are frugal, that's what you get back from that standpoint. So you have to be abundant in your thinking. That's where I'm constantly thinking from, is abundance, because in the universe, there's two opposing energies. There's light, there's dark. There's, you can say, negative and there's powerful, right? There's masculine, there's feminine. There's always an opposing energy. So whenever there's a downswing, there's always an upswing at the exact same time. But you just need to find that upswing. What is that opportunity? Whenever there's a crisis, there's always an opportunity. That's what you should be looking at. It's not taking advantage of someone else's misfortunes, because, Nathan, unfortunately, most people will not take care of themselves. They haven't been trained to. They don't have that mindset to. No one's taught them throughout school to look for opportunities when things are tough. So 90% of people in business right now are struggling. And they're struggling not because their business is struggling, because they're struggling internally. That's why they're struggling. If they're actually being creative, think about this. You're at a, just think of you got this horse race, right? Let's just say you're a jockey, you're sitting on your horse, you're in the stalls, let's just say, and you're about to take off, right? You're waiting for that bang. You hear that bang and you look over, and 9 out of the 10 horses are still in the stall. And you're the only one that's like, okay, is it just me or should I just keep going? If you keep going, you're going to win the race, because that's what's happening right now. 9 out of the 10 business owners are just sitting in their stalls doing nothing. And it's not your job to pull them along. Yes, you can help them. Yes, you can encourage them. Yes, you can stick a carrot in your butt and see if they'll chase you. But you know what? That's up to them if they're actually going to do it. But it's up to you to keep going, right? It's up to you to take it, because it's out there. One of my mentors taught me this. It was a really important lesson, Nathan. It is that money is so abundant out there, there's no shortage, right? There is zero shortage. And we take a look at money and see it as a shortage, like there's a limited supply, but it's not. There is an unlimited supply of money out there that you can attract, that you can actually generate for your business, for example, or for your lifestyle. You just have to learn how to accumulate it or consume it or attract it, however you want to put it. But that starts with you. So that's the angle that I'm always looking at. And that's the angle I believe that you should be looking at, is always look at it from the abundance side, because 9 out of 10 people are looking at it from they're scavenging, right? They're withdrawing. So if you can be abundant and project positive energy and actually look for those opportunities, you're just going to be ahead, because of the sheer numbers, just the sheer stats in itself.
So first of all, I'm not chasing after anybody that sticks a carrot in their butt as a business owner.
I don't know where that came from, man. I'm just thinking, like carrot, horse, they'll chase it. And I'm like, okay, where do you put it? Okay, fine.
Okay. I think also though, one thing that you've kind of changed my way of thinking, which is a lot of times when an evolution happens, the dinosaurs thrash in the tar pits and they're like, we want it to go back to the old way. We want to do business the way we've always done business. But the world is different now. And in some aspects, that's kind of what we're going through. The world is different now, whether we like it or not, whether we think it's justified or not. It is what it is. There's differences in the world now as opposed to what it was 6 months ago. And that means there's differences in the way that business is going to have to work. There's differences in the way that uh, customer relations are going to have to work. There's going to be more differences. We're kind of feeling our way through the dark right now, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work, and what we can get away with and what we can't get away with, and what people will be comfortable with and what people won't be comfortable with. But in all of that chaos, there are going to be people that find the new order. And those people that are saying, I just want to go back to the way things were, which I totally am. Half of me is like, hey, I'm sick of this already. I was sick of it 6 months ago. I want to go back to the way things were. But at the same time, I understand that mentality it stops me from striking while the iron is hot. And I'm glad I have you as an influence in my life, because it puts a check on that for me.
I appreciate that, man, because sometimes I fall in that same category as well. I like old school stuff. Yeah. I like the 80s, for example. I like the 80s music. I miss the 80s music, but that doesn't mean it's going to come back anytime soon. I personally like in-person interactions. I like my workshops, my in-person workshops. I absolutely love them because I get to see and I get to stand in front of men and I get to talk to them and I get to feed off their energy and I get to give them my energy and I get to get inside their brain and really understand how they feel. It's not the same virtually. I am so itching to have an in-person workshop. It's just been so long. So I hear you. So really, I think there's going to be a hybrid approach. I think there's going to be this massive change, and it's already happening, where people are adopting the new technology. They're adopting the new ways of doing business. But just like anything else, here's my one principle of life, Nathan. And I think this is done very well for me. And I try to teach this uh, upon the men that I coach. Is I take the best from everything. That's literally my approach in life. That's my approach in teachings. That's my approach in how I've been successful. I am like the Hyundai, you could say, where I've ripped off all the good stuff from everybody else and I've used it to my advantage. And I think if you take that approach, you're going to be very successful in life, because I used to think that being successful was about being original. I squash that because that makes no sense whatsoever. You take a look at all the geniuses throughout lifetime, Leonardo da Vinci, Einstein, and Graham Bell. All these people talk about one thing, is that genius is universal, that they've captured these thoughts. These thoughts were not their thoughts. They were out there in the universe and they attracted them. And I truly believe that. So if you're trying to be original, throw that out. Take the best of every single thing. Don't get caught up in one particular discipline or skill or whatever that is. Find the best, learn, have a broad scope of skills, and actually learn, take the best from each, and you're going to be way better. And this goes to business as well, because you might want to say, hey, look, I want to go back to business the way it was, but here's what you can do is say, what part of this technology stuff do I like today? What is actually helping me? What's making me be more productive? And then incorporate the old school stuff. Again, I'm going to use one of the examples of one of my clients. He's a photographer and he teaches classes for photography. Previously, he used to do it live. Now he's actually doing a hybrid approach. He's going to teach a lot of the simple stuff in terms of, okay, here's your camera, here are the different buttons, here's what they mean, here's how you change your settings, over video conferencing, over Zoom, for example. But then he's going to actually do the live shoots in a live environment. So he's actually going to go out into the wilderness or whatever it is with his students to do that. So he's actually being more efficient. He's being more effective. He's optimizing his ability now because he's utilizing technology. He's in his 50s, right? And he's been in the same business for 40 years. So He's 40 plus. I don't even know if he's hit 60 yet, but he's been doing the same thing. It's family business that's been in there for 40 years, I believe. And so if he could do it, you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So take the best of everything. Rip people off. I'm telling you, I'm giving you permission to rip stuff off from everybody else and use it to your advantage.
Someone's going to clip that and be like, Purdeep said as a business owner, it's okay for me to rip people off. All right, man, we've kind of gone all over the place today. I think the main thing, though, is while so many people are kind of like deers in the headlight, frozen, about to get hit by the car, that's the time when you as a business owner want to be taking action. Any final thoughts before we're out of here today?
Yeah, I would say think of yourself 12 months from now and look back. Do you want to be telling yourself, hey, look, I took action and I actually did something, regardless of whether it happened, it turned out the way you wanted it to or not? Or do you want to be looking back and said, I should have done that? That's how you should approach it. That's my last piece of advice there.
Awesome. Where can people go if they want to check out more episodes of the podcast?
Well, check out mailpodcast.com and youtubeformen.com if you want to catch us live.
Sweet. All right, man. I will holler at you later. And just a side note, we do the live episodes on YouTube every Thursday morning. So if you want to check that out, that's where to be. And until next time, man, we'll catch you later.
Yeah, can't wait.
Live stream.